let's be honest, most people thought this would be a close game, that the Steelers would likely come out on top. But I did call for the Cardinals in our collaborative podcast last week. Let's get into it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh.
Murray heaves it downfield. It is. Oh, it's caught. It is caught. DeAndre Hopkins. Miraculous. It's Murray magic.
The sickest Arizona Cardinals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome to the sickest Arizona Cardinals podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Singh, and with me today is my friend and active participant in the fantasy football community, Wendi Earley. Wendi, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Miss Kelly. Oh my God, what a game. I can't wait to talk about it.
It was pretty exciting in many weird different ways. But
Yes.
How was your week? What's new? What's going on in your life?
I'm going to say I had a pretty good week. Got a lot of stuff accomplished. I think you remember me sending you my Christmas pictures with the bins of stuff. So it's about halfway done. My family hates me. They're just like, oh my God, it looks like Christmas Vacation threw up in the living room. But you know what? It's going to look all pretty when it's done. So that feels accomplished.
It's good. I love it. It brings such a joy to the house. Even I start right away, as soon as Thanksgiving's over, I'm boxing that stuff up and then I'm getting out my Christmas stuff too. So I love it.
Do you have like any kind of special, like little family thing that you always put out?
Yeah, well, every year we get a new ornament. Everybody gets a new ornament that represents their past year. So I like looking back at those because each one is just from little school crafts all the way to graduations and trips and jobs. So I love it.
And like every year, don't you just start putting them up going, oh, remember this. My prized possession is a ceramic, the old Christmas trees, the ceramic ones, they're green and they've got all the crystals on them and you light it up. My grandma on my dad's side, this has been passed down to me, and it was made in 1967.
Wow.
And it still exists and it's in my possession, and had a couple little repairs done to it, but it just gives me good memories and makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside.
That makes me really happy. And you know what else makes me warm and fuzzy inside? Winning this game.
I can't believe it. I honestly can't. This was not expected, Kelly.
I'm going to say that I expected it, but I think I did it more out of loyalty than anything. But I got to record last week with the Steelers Crazy podcast. Mike and Jordan are part of the Sick Podcast Network. We did a collab special. They talk about the Steelers. I talked about the Cardinals. And I did call it, but it's like, I feel like I have to.
Well, yeah, you don't want to be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure my team's going to lose, but hey, here's the podcast.
We all thought it was going to be close. So I went with that narrative, but I gave the edge to the Cardinals and it wasn't actually close and the Cardinals won. But one thing that was super cool actually was James Conner came to us from the Steelers, actually went to college there in Pittsburgh. And I have a little clip. I'll share my screen with everybody so they can see the clip too. And it shows us talking about James Conner.
Obviously, I literally have his book sitting on my desk right here. He's just an all-around great guy. Just talk about kind of how you guys embraced him and how he's been over there. And just, this is like his homecoming. So I think it will be great. There's no bad blood. It's just an awesome football story. And those stories never get old.
Yeah, the Bird Gang has fully embraced James Conner. He is a staple of our team. And dare I say it, we may not even remember that he was on the Steelers at all.
Oh. Well, it sounds like he's just like a great person, and they really adored him there. And guess what? They don't have him anymore. You
I
do.
don't have him anymore, but they're like, oh.
Did you send any messages today to
I
them?
did, because the Sig podcast posted a post that says, "How are you feeling?" And so I reposted it and was like, "I feel great." But underneath in the comments, I was like, "Mike, Jordan, how are you guys feeling?" And I
A
got
little
a
salt in that
gift.
wound. A little salt in
Little,
that wound.
yeah, some Michael from The Office tears.
Well, I mean, come on, the Steelers were 7-4. You know, they're in second place in the AFC North. I mean, that was, you know, they're coming around. But I'll tell you what, I'm so sad. I had to play Kenny Pickett this week in one of my
Oh
leagues,
my
and
gosh.
yeah, it was oh my gosh at the beginning. I didn't even want to have to play him, but now he's looks like he's hurt. So
Well, that was rough. Yeah, I was sad for him to get
yeah,
hit. I
for
was
sure.
looking through the stats that I had sent over, and basically he only got off 10 passes. He missed 7 for 10, which is amazing.
Right.
Um, for a mere 79 yards, but still, and then he was gone. I played James Conner in some of my daily fantasy lineups this week because I do a lot of DFS. Did you play any Cardinals or Steelers outside of Kenny Pickett? Did you have anybody else in your
You know,
yearly fantasy?
in the yearly, I don't have a whole lot, honestly. You know, who was a big disappointment for the Cardinals was Dortch. I mean,
Yeah,
I had him, you know, I did play him where I
yeah,
had him because I kind of had to, and I actually was expecting more out of him. He had one big play, and he was involved in some special teams, which doesn't count
right.
in that league. But you know, what are you gonna do? James Conner killed it.
He did. And I also played him in some props, switch cash, so that's good.
Yeah,
But I think the reason Dortch didn't get the excitement we thought he would was there was a lot more targets for Rondale Moore this game
he dropped one that was literally he should
in
have
his
caught that.
hands. Yeah.
He's gonna have bad dreams about that
I
tonight. I'm
think he
sorry.
will. And then Marquise Brown had the dropsies again and gave a big goose egg to whoever played him this week,
Yeah.
which I did in one of my fantasy leagues. My home league, we call it. I had Marquise Brown. Sad face.
Yeah. But you know who did kill it? Freaking Trey McBride.
Ray McBride.
Man, and you are right about him. I was looking at his build. Him and Mark Andrews are very similar in that build.
Mhm. And I know that like I mentioned, tight ends, we know that they're tall, but he's not just tall, he's like athletic and like a big person. And it's impressive to see him move. 8 receptions, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. I had a friend of ours, Rachel, texted me to ask Trey McBride, is he going to do well? I gave her my input, and then she's like, but I could also play Njoku. And I was like, in that case, I may actually play Njoku, but she goes, I'd have to drop McBride or D Hop. And I was like, no,
No.
then you're
Yeah.
playing McBride. And it
Yeah.
worked out well
Yeah,
for her.
it sure did. It sure did. And that's the cool thing, you know, we can ask for stuff and inevitably we're making our own decisions,
Yes.
but sometimes we're not, you know, me as a content consumer, I don't necessarily see all of those sides, you know, so it's nice that you can bring that to our attention when we need that help.
Oh my gosh, I've made it a habit now of giving people kind of the trend, the backstory on that player. And it's so wild now. I'll be like, oh, this could be their 4th game in a row with 100 plus yards. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how silly is this that I'm becoming like an encyclopedia of stats just because I want people to be able to make their own informed decision
Yeah.
and not just my opinion.
Right. Yep.
Well, I don't know. Despite all of that, well, let's take a look at the yards, the total yards. The Steelers had more total yards, more passing yards, and just 20 yards fewer rushing than the Cardinals. And on paper, it looks like the Steelers should have never lost this game.
It
Like, how
does.
did
It
that
doesn't make
happen?
sense.
The math is not mathing, except that obviously they just could not convert. They just could not convert. Were you able to catch much of this game?
It was not local to me. I checked yesterday to be sure. So just the highlights on
Highlights.
the red zone,
Yeah.
but which we're all, it's always good to be able to see all that. But I'll tell you what, there's got to be a semi-legal way for me to watch these games.
I'll just start setting up my phone through Zoom like I do on our girls' night get together.
There you go. Yeah, I'm just like, there's got to be a way.
Well, on Red Zone, you wouldn't have seen very much of the Steelers because they were not in the red zone very often.
That
Oh,
is
boy.
true.
So then there was this whole rain delay thing. And
Yes.
I was texting Donnie, the Cardinals beat reporter friend of the podcast. He was at the game. And you also were texting your cousin.
Yep. She was
Did
there.
she give you any inside info about what was going on?
So she's a huge Steeler fan. Her name is Amanda, and she's a police officer, local police officer. So she drives from Indiana to the Steelers games, and she hits a lot of them. So I just asked her, I'm like, let me pull up the text, Kelly. So I'm like, hey, how's it going at the Steelers game? What's going on? I need an update. I'm getting ready to go on this podcast with Kelly, and I need to know what's happening. And she just said, we're losing to the worst team in the league, and we're on a rain delay. And that was it. And I never heard anything else from her.
She's like, bye.
Pretty much. That was the end of that.
During the first rain delay, I was sitting there like, oh my gosh, when's this going to start? So I just texted Donnie and I said, how long is this rain delay? Make it stop. And then he said, as soon as you texted me this, the sun came out.
Oh, hey, why did you do it earlier?
I know. But then the second one, they said there was lightning and all of that. And I'm like, any time expectant, what is the estimate? He's like, no, with a bunch of crying emojis.
I mean, I think they probably made them all leave their seats and everything
They
and get
did
to
because it was lightning for that second one, at least. I think the Cardinals had a handle on it the whole game. And I wish I had paid attention. I'm really bad at knowing the commentators' names, but one of the commentators was like, who do you think this rain delay might benefit? And the other commentator says, whoever can handle their time in the locker room better. I'm like, what? Okay, awesome. Thanks for that answer.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that's so weird. I don't know that either team would benefit from waiting around like that. They don't practice for delays.
I don't think that really happens very often. So I mean, I think this is one of the first times, especially 2 delays.
Right.
But I did get to watch in the second quarter. The Cards defense really stepped up.
Yes.
They had a goal line stand, and Kyler took them back 99 yards all the way down. And Trey McBride should have had that first touchdown that they called.
I agree. That was bad. Bad
call. Even said that was a touchdown. And when Gene says it was a touchdown, it was a touchdown. But he got it on the next one, but still. So that was pretty cool. I thought they really stepped up there.
Me too. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from this game, an unpredictable Cardinals defense. And the Cardinals are pretty banged up. Their bye week is next week. So they've played all this time with their team not getting any breaks. There's people that have come up from the practice squad. And I would say having bye weeks this late is a huge disadvantage because of that. And look what happened. They are unpredictable. They're scrappy. They've got that dog in them.
Yeah. At least they're just like throwing in the towel and, not being competitive. They're not embarrassing themselves. They want to win. I mean, nobody wants to go out there and lose. I mean, unless it's going to give you a better draft pick or something, but
I mean, yeah, but I'm just not bought into that whole intentionally losing thing.
Me neither.
I don't know, coaches' jobs depend on performance, players' jobs depend on performance. So yeah, I don't know if I buy into all that silliness, but again, I keep looking back at the stats and thinking, how did this happen? But
So are the Steelers right
they
now.
are. It all just came down to being able to convert, and the Cardinals defense just held the fort.
Yep.
That's it, really.
I like it. It's a win.
It's a win. It is a win. They're on a bye next week. So I don't know if I'll record or not. Maybe we could just record and talk about what's going on in the league. What are the headlines?
Breaking news, whatever's happening,
Yeah.
injuries, whatever. We can
Tune
go over
in
anything.
for that, everyone.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me today.
Wendi, thank you so much for popping on with me. Let people know where they can find you and what you're doing out there.
All right. Yes. Well, you can find me on X, which I guess is still Twitter to me, by my name there at Wendi Earley. And I also have a show on Tuesday nights with the sports affiliation called The Game Changers with Carla. She is my co-host. And we are on from 8:30 Central Time to 9:30 Central Time.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh and my guest, Wendi Earley. We'll see you around again another time. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.